Hey goblins, this is how you fire Nerf guns and how to use them. Now, the first thing you need to know is there are three main types of Nerf guns, right there, and you will have to know which one yours is in order to know how to use it. There are Springer Nerf guns, like the one I have here, semi-automatic Nerf guns, and fully automatic Nerf guns, along with some miscellaneous ones. So, I'll put some timestamps to the left, and I'll start with teaching you how to use Springer Nerf guns, which is the most common. Now, how do I actually tell if I have a Springer Nerf gun? How you tell is if it does not take any batteries and you didn't have to charge it, if it just works out the box, like you don't have to put batteries in it, it didn't come with a battery that you plug in somewhere, if it just is fine, then what you have most likely is a Springer. Now, why they are called Springers is because basically, if you can see in there, there's a spring right there. So how you use Springers is you have to do an action to them, which gets it ready to be fired. And you have to do that action every time you want to fire it. So for this one, this is my example, the action is pulling this down. As you can see, it moved that, and now we're ready to fire it. So as you can see, if you look in there, when I pull this, it pulls that down. And then you're ready to actually fire it. And there are actually multiple ways that guns go about the way that you prime it. This one that I have right here, you pull down the thing at the bottom. However, there are multiple ways, like I said. So you could pull it at the bottom. Some guns have something at the front that you pull like that to fire. Some guns have something like this that you use to fire, where you pull that back and fire. Some guns may look like this, where you pull this back, then push it forward, and then you're ready to fire. Some guns look like this, where you pull it forward and then pull it backwards, and you're ready to fire. Some guns look like this, where you pull something on the back, and then you're ready to fire. Some look like this, where you pull this, then you can fire. Some look like this, where I have to pull this little hammer thing down, and then you're ready to fire. Some might even look like this, where you pull the entire top back, push it forward, and now you're ready to fire. Very rarely, they might look like this, where you pull this back and then push it forward, and then you're ready to fire. And some might have something at the top like this, where you pull it back, then push it forward, and you're ready to fire. There is one more type of Springer. This basically uses, you might be confused because you might be like, well, I looked at the video. There is nothing that I can press that will actually prime it. There's no priming thing on this. How you prime it is basically you have to pull the trigger really hard, and what it will do is halfway through pulling the trigger, that will prime the blaster, and then the other half will shoot it. So you'll prime so basically you don't need to prime it, but you need to pull the trigger harder. This is only for very few guns and is very uncommon. But you use it like so. Now for using Springer guns, it is very simple. All you do is do the priming that I showed you. So for this one, it is pulling this down. With this one, you actually don't push it back up. The most important things with Nerf guns, if it feels like you're forcing something, do not do it. Nerf will never make you force your way on a Nerf gun. So if something isn't moving when you put a little pressure on it, it's not supposed to move. And with most Springers, once you've found what you do to prime it, you can actually pull the trigger and it fires like this. And obviously right now it's just firing air. It's not actually firing anything because I haven't taught you how to actually put a dart in it. With some of them, they're very simple, like this one. And some of them, they're a little bit harder. So I hope I showed you how to use Springers. Now I'm moving on to semi-automatic Nerf guns. This is an example of a semi-automatic Nerf gun. I know Sorry. I know it is semi-automatic because it takes batteries. And not to be confused with fully automatic, which you operate in almost the same way. I'll show you how to test that. Basically, how you use semi-automatic is your magazine must be in it. I'll show you how to add magazines in. I hope you know how to add magazines by now. But once it's in there, what this trigger does right here is that revs it up, as you can see. And what that one does is basically there's two wheels in here called flywheels that spin around really fast. And when a dart touches them, they're going so fast that it just shoots it out the front. So you're going to want to rev it up for a few seconds. And then you can actually just start pulling the trigger multiple times. And it'll fire one dart every time you pull the trigger. Like that. And then that is how you use semi-automatic Nerf guns. Rev them up, and then you just start firing. Note that the unjamming hatch must be down when you rev it up. Same with a magazine must be in. This is to keep kids from touching the flywheels and hurting their fingers. The next type is fully automatic. These are basically the exact same as semi-automatic, except instead of it fires one dart every time you press the trigger, you just hold down the trigger and it keeps firing darts. How you use this one is first, this is the rev trigger right here. You hold that down and you should hear it rev up, assuming you have batteries in it. You know it's full auto if it has batteries, and it will probably say on the package. But basically you start revving it up and then you just hold down the trigger and darts will start flying out if there is darts in the Nerf gun. And notice that it will not fire if this hatch is down. The hatches will be in different places, but that is because this is the unjamming hatch. You use it to take darts out that are jammed. So this is to stop kids from hurting themselves. It will also not work if the magazine is out. It doesn't do anything. So that has been fully automatic. Rev it up, hold down the trigger. Not very complicated. Here's ammunition and loading. Basically, there are multiple types of ammunition. There are Elite, Mega, Ultra, Rival. There's a bunch of different types. It should come with your Nerf gun. If it didn't, then you can probably just look and tell based on the size of the holes in the Nerf gun. But what you do is you take your ammunition, and there are multiple ways of loading it. The first way is some Nerf guns make you front load it, meaning you just take your dart and then you put it in the front like that. That is the first way. Take your dart, stick it in the front. Some Nerf guns have different ways of loading it though. Another popular way is getting some of them come with these. These are called magazines. Yours might look different, but they have this spring. And you read this, this one says 10. And you see the arrow? You make sure the dart is pointing the way the arrow is, otherwise it won't work. And what you do is you just slide it in there, and then you push this down and slide another one. And you can fill this up with 10 darts. So I load it in one, slide it down, and then I can load in another dart. How you actually load in magazines is first, I hope you learned about the priming segment, but you pull the prime back and you don't push it forward. Once it is back, you find the slot where the magazine goes. Some Nerf guns don't take magazines, some do. And you just stick the magazine into the slot. And then once it's in there, you pull the priming forward, and now you're ready to go. Some of them are known as drum guns, which means they have this big circle thing in the middle. And what you do with these is you take your dart and you just stick it into the holes, and you load up all the darts into all the holes. Another way is known as internal magazines, which means it has a magazine, but it cannot be removed. So how you load these is first you find the magazine by priming it back but not pushing it forward. And as you can see, it's right there. So you take your darts and just stick them in there. Now, another method, which is more complicated, is shells. Your shells might look different if you have a Trilogy or a Shell Strike blaster. But what you do is you take your darts and you load them into the shells like that. And then, unfortunately, I can't go into shells very much because that is kind of complicated and you probably don't have one anyways. But once you load up your shell and you fire it, it doesn't fire the shell stays. It just fires the darts in the shell. So you can load it up with another shell. Another way is something known as HAMP, H-A-M-P. Basically, what these are is you pull it out and then you push it in really quickly. And the faster you push it in, the more power is exerted to push out whatever projectile is in it. Most likely a missile. So what you do is you just pull it out and then push it in once you've loaded up whatever you're going to fire. Here are some different buttons on the Nerf gun. You have the trigger, which is used to actually fire it once it's primed and it's loaded. You have this button, which is used to, this is called the magazine release. So once you have a magazine inside, you fired it, how you release a magazine is you pull the prime back, and then you press the magazine release, and the magazine will fall out, or you can just pull it out lightly. Another button is the unjamming button. This one's unjamming button is right here, and basically what that does is if your Nerf gun gets jammed, you press it down with your finger or like a pen or something, and then you're able to pull back the prime even when it locks up and won't let you pull back the prime. And the final other button is known as the rev trigger. This is what you hold down in order to rev up the Nerf gun, which you need to do if you have a semi or fully automatic Nerf gun, and you need batteries inside of it in order to use this button. Now, the final good thing of note is known as attachments. You can tell they're attachments by this rail. And what you do is you take an attachment that fits on that rail. Like for me, this one, for example. And then what you do is you slide it on there. Like that. And then it should be on there pretty good. There is another type of attachment called Picatinny rails. These are special, and basically the only difference is the way they're shaped. And some attachments don't go on Picatinny rails, and some of them only go on Picatinny rails. So you just gotta make sure that if you're getting an attachment, it works with the rail that you have. The other two types of attachments are stock attachments, where you get it and it just slides on like that. And this just adds a cool little stock detail. And the way you take it off is you press these down on both sides, then it should slide off. The final attachment type is barrel attachments, where you basically line up. There should be a thick thing, a small thing on the barrel, and you line it up with the thick part and the small part on here. So it goes like this, and it pushes on, and then you twist it to lock it into place. And then how you take it off is you just twist it again and pull it off. Some ways you load them, you might have to do this, where you press a button, and then you can pull out the barrel like that. I mean the cylinder. And then once it's pulled out, you're able to just spin it, and you can push the darts into these. Like so. And then you press the button again, and you're able to push it back into the Nerf gun. Another way is pump guns. I do not actually have one, but how you would do it is you pump it up a bunch of times, and then you press, this is like the Big Bad Bow or the Moto Blitz bottom shotgun. But what you do is you pump it up a bunch, and then you just press the trigger or the button and it will shoot them out. You have to pump it up a lot of times because it's building up air pressure every time you pump it. Now a quick overview. What you do, prime it, put your dart in, fire it. For semi-autos and fully autos, rev it up, hold down or keep pressing the trigger. And for loading, put it in the front, magazine, or most likely a barrel revolver of some kind. And it is good to know that some magazine release buttons will be near the magazine, not here on the trigger. So I hope this video helped. You prime the blaster, put darts in and fire it, or you hold down the trigger and either hold down the rev trigger and hold it down or keep pressing. Hope this taught you how to use your Nerf gun. If it didn't, your Nerf gun might be very specific and I would just find the name of the Nerf gun on it. All Nerf guns should have their name on it here, like this one says Jolt right there. So you look for it on there and search in YouTube or your search engine, Nerf blank. In my case, it would be Nerf Jolt. And then you could probably figure out from there how to use it based on videos and things like that. So I hope this helped. Go shoot your friends with some Nerf guns and Heidi ho.